Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Corona, California. Happy New Year. It's 2023. Out with 22, time for a new you, new do just for you. We're getting all cleaned up, make sure that we have a good kickoff to this new year. They say that how January starts sets the tone for the year. This taping happens to be the first day of trading on Wall Street. And remember, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not responsible for your losses, only your profits. But we are going to talk about the stock market today. We're going to talk about how choppy today was and how choppy this month or even quarter might be because of certainty and uncertainty, a common theme throughout our videos here. And we're going to talk about housing as well. And we've got some new data out. What's been going on since our last taping and what is on the minds of everyone that is so data dependent to help make the decisions for their families. So the Fed is still fighting inflation. That's our biggest issue we have going on, is the fight against inflation. And the biggest component of that is wage inflation. The fact that we have 10 million plus jobs open gives this excess supply of jobs, but there's not a lot of people taking those jobs. The last data point that came out, and every Thursday, if you recall, are the weekly jobless claims. The jobless claims didn't actually go up, but continuing jobless claims went up. And they're at a pretty high number. 1.7 million people are continuing weekly jobless claims. That means that they are continuing to ask for benefits from local, state, and federal government to get by. Even though the last couple data points have been coming down and inflation has been rolling over somewhat, wage inflation is still stubbornly high. And so we may be able to fight off certain things like oil and gas or food prices. We may see some of these things come down and even rent come down. But if wages stay high and there are a lot of jobs and structurally our labor force doesn't have a lot of people entering it and jumping into these jobs, and 1.7 million and rising potentially of people staying on the government programs and benefit programs, that keeps wage inflation pretty sticky. And so we may be able to come down from these high points we've been at. We were as much as 9.2%. Even if we can get them under 5% on the core readings, if there is still wage inflation, it could keep us with a high floor. And that is a problem the Fed is really worried about. So all we can do is just watch when this data comes out. Next week, we have a CPI print coming out. This week, the really big data comes out for job information. So this is the first full week of January, so we'll get information from December. It gets more certain every time a new data point comes out or more time passes, but it's still not always a straight line. And that really gets into the way our mental capacity is affected. Are you emotionally distraught because you're watching what's going on in the stock market, or you're watching interest rates go up? These things really impact the way we operate. The really big number comes out on the first Friday of every month. So the first Friday of January is the Bureau of Labor Statistics jobs report, and it's a big deal. The Fed is watching. Are people losing their jobs in December? And are there new jobs being created? Is the economy creating more jobs? We don't know the answer to that yet, but typically in December, you don't see a lot of jobs lost. It's it's totally uncool for an employer to let go of someone during the holidays. I mean, December is, the holiday season. So this jobs report might not show as much damage. A lot of the white collar jobs that get severance packages because they're still on severance, they don't really show up yet as someone that's unemployed, as someone that's asking for a continuing claim, as a layoff. So we might see more damage in the first Friday of February for the January jobs report. But nonetheless, these data points are super important, and this is what people are looking at. So just give you a little idea of what to focus on, what we just saw the last couple of weeks since our last taping, and what we're gonna see here coming up. Okay, so let's talk about 2023. Let's get a little bit refreshed on our outlook. We did a video a couple weeks ago, and I gave kind of a general take on what's going on in the economy. And I just alluded to just a second ago, what are the big fights going on? There's this big push and pull debate, right? The economy was strong, the economy was growing, the economy was hot, inflation ran hot because of all that. So now the Fed has to raise rates to fight inflation. So by doing that, they will cause some damage in our economy. Housing, first sector to go into a recession because of higher interest rates. Housing was brutal second half of 2022. And the outlook for most within the industry is a little tepid, a little timid We're a little shell shocked because we just went through recession. We know that January and February are typically slow months. Having said that, rates have come down from their peak on November 10th, where they were over 7% on average on a 30-year fixed. Now that is a trend, again, doesn't go in a straight line like all these trends, but we have seen rates come down. And a lot of borrowers who are on the sidelines who need shelter, who are renting, they are waiting for a better deal, or maybe for their lease to expire, or a better time. Maybe they don't want to go mid-school year, maybe they want to wait towards a little bit closer to the summer. But anyone who's looking for that new shelter, rates have been coming down for everybody. And that is a trend we continue to see happening going into the end of Q1 and Q2. Now, what typically is a catalyst for lower interest rates is the Fed. The Fed is fighting inflation. And if these CPI, PPI, and PCE reports that come out have less and less inflation, the Fed won't have to keep raising the federal funds rate, which does impact all interest rate sensitive industries, including housing. Do you want to wait for confirmation when everyone sees rates come down? Or do you want to say, I see the trend, I can get out in front of it? On one of our very first videos in the series, we talked about a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down. You can literally buy down your rate by 2% from day one. So you don't have to wait for rates to come down 2%. You could have that payment the day you start, which, by the way, when you close on a loan, you don't typically make a payment for about a month or month and a half. So you have a little bit of cash flow that you save right there. So if you think rates are going to come down anytime in the next 2 years or 1 year, heck, you could even do a 3-2-1 buy down. If you think rates at some point will come down, you can jump into a lower rate today with a buy down. Make sure you ask a local originator how to structure your loan to do that. Now, the other thing the borrowers are waiting for is lower home prices. People want a deal when they buy something. Home prices have been coming down since May. They're still up year over year, about 8 to 9% appreciation in any given market year over year. But generally since May, home prices have been coming down, and they are definitely correlated. And that's why housing went into a recession first. The best deals on average throughout the year happen in January. January home prices are typically 0.55% less expensive than the average throughout the year, making January one of the very, if not the best time to buy a house. I hope the timing works for you. For those in Buffalo, I know you had it really rough. There's been some awful weather. Damar Hamlin, we pray for him and his family, and we know that that market is reeling. It's hard to think about in this cold weather, in this tough market, when one of your heart and soul teammates from your favorite team is going through such a hard time. It's hard to think about your finances, hard to think about anything. But if you look at January, and if you can get out there and you can look for a house, you can help put your path for your family to wealth creation earlier and at a better footing than most. Remember, January is one of the best deals you can get on home prices. Stay safe, stay warm, but you can continue to look for a house. This is a great time to do it. Okay, let's talk about the stock market. The stock market has been choppy. It's been a little rocky. I've seen some data from all these subscription services I pay for. I get all these little nuggets here and there. I try and share them with you where I think they're appropriate. But some of the things that they do, financial advisors, when they're taking your money and investing it in stock markets, mutual funds, ETFs, they have these different approaches. They have these benchmarks. So for stocks, one of the main benchmarks is called the S&P 500. It's an index. How did those top 500 stocks do in the year of 2022? Well, they were down 19% for the year. So your average financial advisor is gonna say, if I did better than losing 19% of your money on paper in your stock account, then I did better than the S&P average. And of course, we all want better, but that's typically how financial advisors operate. They use an index to measure how they're doing. And it's a really tough job for them. They have to basically say, hey, I didn't lose you as much money on paper as the rest of the gang, so I'm doing good. And that's a tough pill to swallow for anyone. And everyone fully expects those stocks and bonds to come back and rebound at some point. When? Nobody knows. A lot of conventional wisdom says second half of this year. Some people say the very last quarter, Q4 this year, and some even say into next year. But having said that, looking back, if you were in equities, all stocks, 100% stock, the S&P 500 lost 19%. If your investment horizon is longer term, 3 to 5 years or more, it doesn't really matter what it's doing. Set that money aside and have it sit there. So like your stock market, your home, they should be typically viewed as long-term investments, and they are forced savings plans. They help you save for the future. So back to the stock market and some of the recap of 22 and our outlook on 23. There's this balanced approach that financial advisors talk about. It's called the 60-40 portfolio. So if you have $10,000 in there, $6,000 would go to stocks and $4,000 would go to fixed income securities like bonds, treasuries, and stuff like that. Bonds and treasuries are typically invested in for people not to lose money. But 2022 was brutal for the fixed income security market. It was a tough year for treasuries. As treasury yields go up, prices actually go down. This kind of balanced approach of a 60-40 portfolio only lost 14% last year. So if you were 100% in stocks, you lost 19% compared to the S&P 500 index. And if you were in a 60-40, 60% stocks and equities versus 40% bonds or fixed income, you only lost 14%. That's how brutal 2022 was for people investing their money in the money markets. It was a tough year, one of the toughest I've seen in a long time. Now, having said that, are these companies that you invested in, are they still great companies? Did everyone just throw away their iPhones? Did they just stop using iTunes? They may have slowed down, they may have paused, but Apple's playing the long game too. Apple isn't gonna just throw in the towel because their stock price went down, and neither should you if you have money in that stock. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to give you specific advice. I'm just using that as an example. Do you think Apple is a good long-term bet? Most people do. Most people think it's a great company. And you know what's something Apple can do? They could buy back their own shares. They've already announced they're going to do that to the tune of billions of dollars. And if you happen to be in Apple stock, then you'll rise with that tide. So it's something to think about. These things can snap back quick. What are some things that snap things back? We've got a couple big catalysts coming up. Obviously, earnings season. Earnings season is the biggest put up or shut up time in the stock market. It's where a company comes out and says, hey, we did not meet analysts' estimates for our earnings per share, our inventory, how much goods we sold, China shut down, expensive this, expensive that. It's where they tell you once a quarter, 4 times a year, publicly traded companies tell the public what's going on with the health of their company. And you know what? When economies slow down, that doesn't mean that Apple's gonna just fold up their shop and go, you know what, we're done. Hey, we had a bad quarter. And neither should you. And I'm not saying neither should you on the stock, I'm just saying as it relates to investing, right? So you've got to keep saving money, whether you're saving it in real estate, saving it in the stock market, saving it in bonds. These are all long-term forced savings plans. Unless, of course, you don't want savings. But most people want to have something to fall back on, whether it's 6 months of cash in case they lose their job, which is a great rule of thumb for you, or maybe you just want something to retire in the future. 2 more big catalysts. The biggest one is the Fed meeting on February 1st, the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, and they are seen to be more dovish. And what that means is they're probably not going to keep raising rates as aggressively, as fast, and maybe not even keep them that high as long. So we will watch on that February 1st meeting. That's the second really big catalyst coming up. So a lot going on between then and now. Seems like forever in this next 4-week lunar cycle where we'll see the days get longer, but we won't have the certainty from the Fed until February 1st. So we might see a lot more choppiness and action in that time. So that's what I want to talk about, a couple contrarian moves for you in that choppy time. Certainty versus uncertainty. I get it. We're all emotional. Taking emotion out of the way we think and the way we operate is so crucially important, especially when times are uncertain. And when people are fearful, Warren Buffett likes to say, be greedy. And when people are greedy, he says, be fearful. That's the same thing as taking a contrarian view. And he's arguably one of the best investors we've ever seen. He's called the Oracle of Omaha. He also says nobody wants to get rich slowly. Now, if you think about building wealth over time, 2022 it was a trying year. But if you owned a home, you built wealth. If you owned a home in 21 or 20, you were building wealth. And the wealth you built in 20, 21, and 22 sets you up nicely for 23, even if it's a choppy, recession-filled year. Did you know that Texas, which now is the only other state besides California to have 30 million people in its population, Texas has the highest percentage of borrowers that own their home free and clear, or the highest number. It's 2.9 million borrowers own their home free and clear. Florida is second. Obviously, we have a lot of retirees, so they've had time to build that wealth and pay it down to zero. And then California is third. Now, even though California has the third highest number, it's actually one of the lowest percentage-wise, only 33%. Imagine going into this potential recession or many recessions in the future, and you don't have to worry about rent. You're only gonna get there if you, one, own a home, no matter what, and over time, pay that thing down. So I am advocating to create wealth and stability over time. And like Warren Buffett said, get rich slowly. So let's take a couple other contrarian views here. When you see the stock market come down, when you see home prices come down, you see rates coming down, and you see jobs start to get lost, and you see things happening out there, you hear the news, you hear the fear mongering. The news is there to play with your emotions. And trust me, the election cycle is about to kick off again. Feels like we just got done with the midterms. There's gonna be so much fear and uncertainty and doubt spread throughout the airways, but not on my channel, not on KP Talks Dollars and Cents. Not gonna do that to you. We're gonna operate not just in 23, but every year going forward with a clear mind, a clear head. We're gonna look at data. We're gonna strip out emotion, and we're gonna make decisions that might seem contrarian to what you see in the mainstream media, but we don't look at that stuff. We vote with our pocketbook, and we try and create wealth for ourselves and our families. I hope this first issue from 2023 of KP Talks Dollars and Cents was helpful for you and your family. Let's have a great year together, and let not be feared at all. Let's make sure that we are having a clear mind and make sound financial decisions. Okay, it's a brand new year. It's 2023, and I wanted to bring some new footage to you from a new project that I've been working on. I have not shared it with KP Talks Dollars and Cents yet, have not shared it with the audience. But we saw the project in Culver City. It's basically a ground up construction project. And then we went and looked at the fourplex right next door, which is another project that we want to take down the 4 units, redo them, and then add 2 ADUs in the back for a total of 6 doors. In the meantime, my partners and I, we have a project going in Palm Desert. And I walked it on New Year's Eve day, so this past Saturday, and took some footage. I did it from my handheld camera, but it's still footage nonetheless. So I want to share some of that insight with you. It's a new year. We've got a new project. Want to introduce some new content to the channel. So one more thing for us to have this underlying theme to kind of keep up with. The project in Culver City, the project in Palm Desert, all these things we got going on. I promise more projects to come your way. A little bit of fix and flip action. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Palm Desert. It is New Year's Eve day, and I'm standing next to a dumpster. And my partner, Jason, he's hiding somewhere. But we just walked this other job we got going. So you've seen the Culver City job that's out there. And this is a couple blocks off Paseo, P-A-S-E-O. So look that up in Palm Desert. It's kind of like the main hub. A bunch of bars and restaurants, and you know, it's just one of those neighborhoods that's kind of up and coming, and you've got people from LA that are tired of the BS that goes on there, traffic, politics, crime, whatever. And we got haze here today, though. Like you see, LA gets a ton of haze. You got some mountain views out here, and there's some other mountain views really all around. But man, they took this old dog right here and taught it a new trick. So we're pretty cool stuff. Where this dumpster is going to be a pool. You got this nice little palm tree in the yard. You got 2 of them. This is a main room out here that's being added on. This is new concrete poured right here, and that's the old footprint right there. Here's some more footing for this wall. I'm learning all the lingo from my buddy. And little courtyard area back here. Got some trees. It's kind of an entertainer's type deal, right? So you've got out back, you can see they're adding some more square footage to the house. So I think we're adding like 900 square feet to the existing footprint. So I think we're 435K in, and probably put in like 300,000 in construction, I believe. And we think we should be able to get, maybe 900. Quick little hitter, quick rip. It's fun. It's a fun process. I mean, I know housing is in a recession, but we all know that, if rates come down a little bit or prices come down a little bit, that wave of demand that's out there, that demographic demand, it's going to overtake the lack of supply. So we got to put houses out here. It's going to be custom builders like our company here that Jason and Britt and our team run. They're going to come in and regentrify these neighborhoods. I mean, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's mountains, the weather's amazing. I'm standing in short sleeves, the secret's out. But people want new product. They want a new car, a new sweater, a new this, a new that. New product being built will fetch new higher dollars. The process is fascinating to me. Obviously, I'm now in a couple of these projects, but you've got a rebar guy that comes in and puts rebar. Then you've got your plumbing that gets checked off. You see over there, these little blue tapes in the caps. It's funny, like a little delay here. So this meter we wanted to get moved. This is the gas meter, and like the one gas guy in Palm Desert, he's off. It's holidays, right? So it sets back our whole project. Maybe a week, maybe two, I don't know. And so then you can't come in and pour the concrete down in all these footings that we've dug out. So, as Jason has told me, the pre-pour meeting before you pour is very important, where you get everyone on the same page: electrical, plumbing, setbacks, rebar, all that. Because obviously you can't unpour concrete once you do it. So just fascinating, hearing and learning things, from him. Kind of quiet week economically. Next week is as well. Jobs report still showed 1.7 million continuing claims. So there's people that are holding out. They don't want those 10.3 million jobs that are open because they're getting 1.7 million in continuing claims. Speaking of $1.7 trillion government bill passed to fund our government just through September when we're fighting inflation. That's crazy, right? So the amount these budgets are kind of estimates, right? And then you get either less money coming in or overspend. And what was interesting on this last round, we were like 5.5%, equivalent of GDP, either underfunded or over budget, and 2.5% of that came from the Department of Education, because we've been forgiving or canceling or pushing back the payment of student loans to our government. That the equivalent of 2.5% of our GDP is unfunded from the government. And it's something I mentioned on one of my videos earlier this year, was something called fiscal drag. When there's less money coming in and there's less money being spent by our government, it is a drag on the economy. And that's absolutely what just happened. The war in Ukraine, surprisingly, is only 0.2% of a spend, that extra bill that we've been passing to help fund that proxy war against us in Russia that Ukraine is fighting. And God bless them. See some nasty videos out there, people still getting killed mercilessly. Not to be a downer, but inflation could be a little stickier when we're overspending in this country. And but all we need is the economy to snap back. And so we're doing our part, man. We're trying. So hopefully whenever I post this, it's a brand new year, you're ready for 2023. I'm working on a Saturday. My phone's always on. I'm always answering emails and texts and messages, and it's a grind. It's 24/7. So, man, this mobile phone, it's the fourth industrial revolution. You get what you want, how you want, when you want, interconnected globally, 24/7, right here at your fingertips. So it's hard to shut work off, but if you do what you love, it's not work, right? So I hope you all are making a move to do something you love, that you're passionate about. Remember, building purchase money business, creating deal flow is what it's all about. Things are looking better. We'll have a spring purchase season. We'll get an update on this property when it gets a little bit prettier. Wood framing coming soon. Happy New Year from PRMG, KP Talks. Got videos down below. Financial Freedom with KP on your home TV network. From my families to yours, happy 2023. Happy New Year. Cheers.